There is a terrorist wing called Answer.
Quand nous avons eu cette information,
when we received this information, we thought that Nigeria was. We called Ahmed Abubakar Rauf to inform him of the intention that is emerging in the sense of opening a Lakurwa front in Sokoto.
De l'intention qui se dessine dans le sens de l'ouverture d'un front Lakurawa dans le Sokoto et dont la base sera
whose base will be composed of the Islamic State in the Greater Sahara, which operates in northern Mali, of Ansar, which operates on the periphery of Nigeria, and of ISWAP. It is a branch of the Islamic State, but which they call the Dullah of the Islands, which is under the orders, as I said, of a certain Abu Musa al-Barnawi, who is the son of Yusuf Muhammad. His real name is Habib. This is the intention that France has to open another front. We did it because we thought that Nigeria was sincerely engaged in the fight against terrorism.
Wow, this is shocking and heartbreaking. As you know, this is General Chiani speaking. He's revealing what he's going through, his country, those in the Sahel are going through in the hands of the French, in collaboration with our own ECOWAS leaders, some of our own ECOWAS leaders, and yet ECOWAS is calling them to come back. I want us to go and watch the full video. You know, it's heartbreaking as to why we are doing this to ourselves as melanated people or as African people. Let's go and watch the full video, come back and talk about it. But before we do that, please, I'm calling on you. Please support and share what we are doing. Help our mission, One Africa Mission. We are missionaries. We are on a mission. And our mission is all about the unity of our continent and our collective dignity as a race. So please, if you appreciate what we are doing, let us take our YouTube channel to 10K subscribers before the end of this month or this year. How can we do that? It's by you just sharing it. Share it, like it, pass your comments. For those of you passing your comments, I keep saying I really appreciate and I say thank you very much. We are learning a lot from you. As the debate goes on, we learn from each other. We all want the best for our continent. We are sick and tired of suffering in the hands of our colonial criminals. Let's go and listen to General Chiani, what they are going through in the Sahel. It's heartbreaking, as I said. Come back and talk about it.
There is a terrorist wing called Answer. When we received this information, we thought that Nigeria was. We called Ahmed Abubakar Rauf to inform him of the intention that is emerging in the sense of opening a Lakurwa front in Sokoto.
De l'intention qui se dessine dans le sens de l'ouverture d'un front Lakurawa dans le Sokoto et dont la base sera
whose base will be composed of the Islamic State in the Greater Sahara, which operates in northern Mali, of Ansar, which operates on the periphery of Nigeria, and of ISWAP. It is a branch of the Islamic State, but which they call the Dullah of the Islands, which is under the orders, as I said, of a certain Abu Musa al-Barnawi, who is the son of Yusuf Muhammad. His real name is Habib. This is the intention that France has to open another front. We did it because we thought that Nigeria was sincerely engaged in the fight against terrorism.
Parce que nous avions pensé que le Nigeria était sincèrement engagé dans la lutte antiterroriste. Nous avons permis.
We allowed Nigerian agents to make contact with the terrorists we arrested, the Emir terrorist leaders. They all reported the same thing to us.
Les chefs terroristes des émirs, c'est pas un, c'est pas deux, c'est pas trois, qui nous ont tous rapporté la même chose. Nous l'avons.
We called him, his team came, the DGSE made rolling means available to them, took care of them for almost a week so that they could conduct the investigations and discover.
Pendant près d'une semaine. Pour qu'ils mènent les investigations et découvrent. Malheureusement, nous regrettons de l'avoir fait puisque nous
Unfortunately, we regret having done so since we understood that this debriefing led certain emirs to become entrenched because the message that was passed to them was a message of trickery, of deception, of duplicity.
De tromperie, de duplicité. La France ne s'est pas arrêtée à ça.
France did not stop there. France continued then in the Lake Chad basins. What did they do?
Dans les bassin du lac Tchad. Qu'est-ce qu'ils ont fait? Après la rencontre du 25 au 26
After the meeting of October 25th to 26th, they returned on the night of January 10th to 11th to land a large batch of equipment, weapons and others for the benefit of the Bakura terrorists.
de matériel, armement et autres au profit des terroristes El Bakura. Le 29,
On January 29th later, they will return to an island called Bertinger, which is 10 kilometers east of Boso, where the terrorists were gathered for the occasion.
de Bosso, où les terroristes étaient réunis pour la circonstance. Toutes les armes jugées
All the
être
weapons
vétustes
deemed
par les
obsolete by the
Français
French were
ont été
replaced, the
remplacées.
individual AK-47 weapons, whether they were collective weapons and equipment, notably through the supply of mines, mind you, even anti-personnel mines, while their use is officially prohibited and France is a signatory to the convention of this prohibition.
Tenez-vous bien, même des mines antipersonnelles, alors que l'usage est officiellement interdit et que la France est signataire de cette interdiction. Ils
They
les
equipped
ont
them with these
dotés de
weapons,
ces armes.
they equipped them
Ils
with
les ont dotés
anti-tank
des
weapons, therefore mines.
armes anti-chars.
This happened
Donc,
on January 29th,
ça s'est passé
2024.
le 29 janvier 2024.
D'accord.
Plus tard, ils sont
Later,
revenus.
they returned, and it only
Et ça
escalates.
ne fait que monter en surenchère. En
In November, October 1st, on the 16th of this year, they returned with
cette
large
année,
sums of money.
Ils sont revenus avec d'importantes sommes d'argent. Nous l'avons annoncé dans un éditorial.
We announced it in an editorial. They have always committed their will, and to prove to the Boko Haram movement that they are sincere in their relations and that they have promised the equipment, not only, but the supply of speedboats, they are pirogues, the speedboat pirogues with engines, but not pirogues, it's speedboats designed for travel on the sea or any body of water.
C'est des vedettes conçues pour le déplacement sur la mer ou toute étendue d'eau.
D'accord.
Ils ont promis 100
They
vedettes
promised
au
7
mouvement
speedboats to
Boko
the
Haram.
Boko Haram
Le
movement.
7
On November
novembre,
7th, they returned with, mind
sont
you,
revenus
for the Bakura wing,
avec
1 billion CFA
tenez-vous
francs.
bien, pour l'aile Bakura, 1 milliard de francs CFA.
C'est fort.
Pour l'aile réticente de Issoire,
For the reluctant
ils ont
wing,
promis
ISWAP, they
4
promised 4
milliards
billion CFA francs if they only accept that the French settle permanently in their zone of influence inside Nigeria.
Définitivement dans leur zone d'influence à l'intérieur du Nigeria. Puisque c'est une zone où j'ai servi. et je connais
Since it is an area where I served and that I know particularly well, all the islands of the Lake Chad Basin, whether on the Niger side, whether on the Nigeria side, whether on the Chad side. We had maneuvered on foot for months in 1996 and 1997.
1996 et en 1997. Donc c'est une zone que je connais parfaitement. Ils ont
So,
promis,
it is an area that I know
si
perfectly.
acceptent
They promised, if they accept that they settle, for billion CFA francs to the state of Nigeria. They promised a sum. I leave the monopoly to President Tinubu to say how much the French offered him to settle in the state of Borno.
Je laisse le monopole au président Tinubu de dire combien les Français lui ont proposé pour s'installer dans l'état du Borno.
So yes, after watching this, can you really blame the French for what they are doing to us? You see, the sad thing is that when our leaders claim that they are fighting Boko Haram, they are not sincere because they cannot even collaborate to fight them. They are not sincere, and you can see the sincerity. That is what I said the last time. I cannot see the sincerity coming from ECOWAS when they are calling the Sahel Alliance to come back or to stay with them. The Sahel Alliance should not make that mistake and go back to ECOWAS because you cannot see that sincerity. ECOWAS is controlled by the French. Look at what he's revealing here. So even Nigeria is not like sincere when they talk about they are fighting Boko Haram. Because when those in the Sahel are trying to collaborate with Nigeria to fight this Boko Haram, they are not seeing that enthusiasm coming from Nigeria, from the side of Nigeria. It's very unfortunate. And as I said, can we blame the French for that? No, because the French are doing it, whatever they are doing in West Africa, trying to destabilize the Sahel, they are doing it for their own interests because they know what they are getting in the Sahel. But the question is, at whose interest is Nigeria or Ghana or Cote d'Ivoire or Benin or whichever country? At whose interest are we doing it for? Trying to destabilize our own brothers and sisters in the Sahel. At whose interest? Because of France. So as I've said it before, and I will repeat it, whatever is happening to us as African people, whatever has ever happened to us during the colonization of Africa, during slavery, it could never have happened to us if we ourselves did not participate. Sometimes we are so afraid of accountability. That is our biggest problem as African people or melanated people. We don't want accountability. We will always try to look for excuses, trying to put the blame on other people. It is about time we take time, we do self-retrospection, and then take some of the blames. Some of our ancestors participated in the slave trade, whether we like it or not. We don't want to say that. But today, yes, the truth is that some of them, some of our chiefs, some of our ancestors stood up and fight the slave traders, the colonizers. Some of them sacrificed for the continent of Africa. But the reality is that some of them too participated. They could not have done what they did to us if some of our ancestors didn't participate in the slave trade. And today, the evidence is there. What some of our leaders are doing everything they can to help the Europeans recolonize the continent of Africa. Are you trying to tell me that they are forcing them to do that? The French are negotiating with terrorists. They are negotiating with our governments, our leaders, to continue to oppress our people in the Sahel. The French are not forcing them. When they took President Tinubu to France, and they were dancing, chop my money, were they forcing him?
Don't give him my testimony, oh. I'm killing a beat and I give him the heat, so hey. No, I'm giving them everything, oh. I'm living my life, I don't have money, hey. I don't taste money, hey. My God, I'm allergic to poverty. You saw what? Some you.
Yes. When they were dancing, chop my money, were they forcing him? They didn't force him to sign anything. And today, they want to open a military base in Borno State, just as General Chiani was saying. They want to.
So, these terrorists are currently benefiting from material support, financial support, and training support from France, with, of course, the complicity of other Western powers. Because if they simply told France to stop, I am sure France would stop. But since they are complicit and Niger deserves a correction, it is of course necessary to supervise the terrorists so that ultimately Niger falls and it is proven to the world, to Africa, and to Nigeria in particular, that we are not worthy of any self-determination, that we are not worthy of taking responsibility for ourselves, and that we are nothing but incapable.
Republic's head of state, General Abdurrahmane Chiani, has accused France of providing financial support to Nigerian authorities to establish a military base in Borno State. Chiani believes that this initiative is part of a broader plan by France to destabilize Niger and the entire confederation of the Alliance of Sahel states.
Open a military base in Borno State. Did they force him? They didn't force him. So he's doing it at his own will. Future generations will come and say, no, he was forced. He was not forced. Just as some of our ancestors were not forced to sell their own brothers into slavery. It's the same thing that leaders like President Tinubu they are doing to us today. So we cannot blame them. Sometimes I ask myself, have we ever really practiced Ubuntu that we claim that we have? I am because you are, or you are because I am, Ubuntu. Because the Europeans are the ones who are practicing Ubuntu. Look, if something bad happened in France or in Paris today, you're gonna see like a terrorist attack happen in France. You're gonna see all European countries will come together in solidarity to try to help France overcome that. If something happened to a country in Africa, nobody cares. Even your neighbor doesn't care. If there is maybe a fire outbreak in Burkina Faso, Ghana doesn't care. If there is a terrorist attack in Ghana, Togo, they don't care. If there is, so for us, we never practice anything like solidarity. Look at what is happening in Sudan. Who cares? Nobody cares. Where is that love, Ubuntu love that we claim that our ancestors have? So we shouldn't be blaming the Europeans for what they are doing to us. We are our own enemies. Anything that has ever happened to us, we are participating in our own self-destruction. We are participating in that. And then because we don't like accountability, we don't want to be taken responsible for what we are doing to ourselves. We always try to look for reasons as to, even at individual levels, that is how we are as black people. You will do something, you don't want to take responsible for that. So you'll be looking for reasons as to why it happened, trying to blame it on other people. Today, look at what we are doing, everything that we can to break the Sahel. And it is all our own people who are doing that. It is our own leaders. Why is it that President Tinubu, at your age, you cannot try to leave a legacy so that future generations will remember your name in good faith? Honestly, our leaders in the Sahel are going through a lot. They are exhibiting patriotism. They are exhibiting good quality leadership that we all want as African people. But they are going through a lot. Look, General Chiani said, the European Union, in collaboration with France, just as I said, the Europeans will always stand together when it comes to Africa. Even during colonization, they used to fight, have their differences in Europe. They were fighting among themselves. The French and the British were fighting among themselves. But when it comes to Africa, they will still come together and then defeat us, because they know at the end of the day, when they go back to Europe, they can have their differences. But outside of Europe, let them come together, because they all have one interest, is to dominate you. What about us? What about us? The time has come for us to at least also prioritize ourselves. Why? What is happening? Why will you want the French? Look at what General Chiani is saying. They are giving even the terrorists, they are negotiating with them. We will give you this. We will give you 1 billion CFA francs if you can destabilize. And these terrorists, they are citizens of our country. So these terrorists are not anybody but our own people. What are they doing that for? To destabilize our continent. They are not doing it for no good. And yet we want to blame the French for that. The French are doing it for their own interests, for their own survival. What are we doing that for as ECOWAS? And yet ECOWAS want the Sahel to come back. Why is it that ECOWAS are not talking about defeating the terrorist groups in West Africa? It is not safe to travel around West Africa by road. If you wake up, you cannot travel around West Africa. The French, who are helping you to destabilize your region, the Europeans who are helping you to destabilize your continent, those Europeans, you have freedom to travel around Europe. You can wake up and travel around Europe with full security. And yet they are destabilizing your continent. You cannot move from Ghana to Burkina Faso, the neighboring country. You're scared because terrorists may attack you. Africans, let us stand up for these, our leaders in the Sahel. Those guys are going through a lot and they need our support, both physically, spiritually. Those of you young Africans who are perishing in the Mediterranean Sea, why not go and join the Sahel Alliance? Why not go and join the army? I think the Sahel Alliance should open their military for every young African who want to join. Because we cannot afford to let the Sahel Alliance fail, because we have some greedy leaders. We have some leaders who doesn't think about the future of the continent of Africa. We cannot allow the Sahel Alliance to fail.